Smith's heart pounded as he stood outside the small language school at the edge of town. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and long shadows stretched across the empty street. Inside, the faint glow of fluorescent lights spilled onto the worn wooden floor, illuminating rows of desks and chairs. He clutched his notebook in one hand and a pen in the other, memories flooding back to that first day he walked through these doors, nervous, hopeful, and determined to learn English. Tonight, though, was not just another evening of study. Tonight, everything could change. 6 months ago, Smith was a clerk at a modest insurance office. He earned just enough to support his younger sister, Mira, and his ailing mother. Life felt ordinary, predictable, and safe. Then, one rainy afternoon, a letter arrived from a distant relative in Australia. It offered Smith a job as an assistant manager at a branch office, an opportunity to earn more, save for his mother's surgery, and lift his family out of financial hardship. But there was a catch: he needed to be fluent in English. Desperate and determined, Smith enrolled in the only English language school in town, Wilson Academy of English. Mrs. Wilson, the head teacher, was a retired British expatriate with a soft smile and stern expectations. Her husband had passed away a year earlier, and she had devoted herself to teaching, believing that language could open doors to a better future. On the first day, Smith remembered her gentle but firm voice. Learning a new language is like building a bridge. It takes time, patience, and courage. "Are you ready to cross, Smith?" He nodded, the room full of other students, shopkeepers, taxi drivers, seamstresses, each with their own dreams of fluent speech. In the early weeks, Smith struggled. Simple conversations felt like puzzles. "What is your name?" "How are you?" But he stumbled over pronunciation, mistranslated idioms, and felt embarrassed when classmates giggled at his mistakes. At home, Mira tried to help. She quizzed him on vocabulary during dinner, corrected his grammar with a gentle laugh, and peppered his speech with slang from English movies. Still, Smith felt his confidence waver. He wondered if he was wasting time. His mother's condition worsened, the hospital bills piled up, and fear settled in his chest like a heavy stone. One evening, after a particularly humiliating class, where he mixed up desert and dessert and accidentally asked, "Can I have a spice?" instead of Spice Rack, Smith left the school early. Lightning split the dark sky, and rain pelted the pavement as he raced home. Inside, his mother lay on the creaky cot, eyes closed, her breathing labored. Mira greeted him with tired eyes. "You okay?" she asked, concern etched across her face. Smith knelt by his mother's side, brushed her damp hair from her forehead, and whispered, "I can't fail her. I won't." In that moment, a fire ignited within him. He resolved to study harder, to push through embarrassment and doubt. He put aside hours to practice pronunciation in front of the mirror, to read books out loud, and to memorize irregular verbs, even as his eyelids drooped with exhaustion. Nights blended into mornings as he juggled work, studies, and family responsibility. Every time fatigue threatened, he pictured his mother's frail smile and Mira's hopeful eyes. Weeks turned into months. Smith's progress was slow but steady. He celebrated small victories, ordering tea without hesitation, understanding classroom instructions, and even cracking a joke or two, albeit simple ones. One day, Mrs. Wilson complimented his improvement. "Your accent is coming along, Smith. Keep practicing, and soon you'll speak as confidently as you write." Those words buoyed him, fueling every ounce of his energy. Then, one afternoon, the school manager, Mr. Patel, announced a special challenge, a mock job interview to be held that evening. Each student would be paired with a native speaker, volunteers from a nearby expatriate community, and asked to answer typical workplace questions. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want this job? What skills can you bring to the company? The winner would receive a golden ticket, a personal letter of recommendation from the school to any employer abroad. For Smith, this was more than a ticket, it was hope. He spent every spare minute rehearsing responses, memorizing vocabulary, and practicing body language, standing tall, making eye contact, and smiling with confidence. As dusk fell, Smith entered the dimly lit hall where the interviews would take place. His palms were damp. Chairs lined up in the center, with expatriate volunteers seated behind folding tables. One by one, classmates were called in. He watched them exit, some with wide grins, others with shoulders slumped. Each time the door swung open, his heart leaped and fell. Finally, his name was called. Mrs. Wilson offered a reassuring nod. He inhaled deeply, straightened his shirt, and stepped inside. The room was silent except for the faint hum of a ceiling fan. A coffee mug sat on the table, steam curling upward. Opposite him sat a tall man with silver hair, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers. He introduced himself as Mr. Thompson, a business consultant from Canada. His voice was calm, his accent gentle but firm. "Good evening, Smith. Please have a seat." Smith sat, placed his notebook at the edge of the table, and forced himself to breathe evenly. Mr. Thompson began. "Tell me about yourself." Smith's mouth felt dry. He pictured Mira's encouraging smile. He looked at Mr. Thompson's steady gaze and spoke slowly. "My name is Smith Patel. I work as a clerk at Sunrise Insurance. I live with my mother and my sister. My mother is ill, and I hope to get a job in Australia to pay for her treatment and support my family." Mr. Thompson nodded, jotting notes on a pad. "Why do you want to work in Australia?" he asked. Smith's heart fluttered. He swallowed and pressed on, "Because I want to learn from a bigger market, improve my skills, and send money home. I believe my experience in customer service, combined with my English proficiency, will help me succeed." During the interview, Mr. Thompson posed questions about teamwork, handling stress, and future goals. With each answer, Smith's nerves settled. He spoke clearly, matched tone with confidence, and even cracked a light joke about his initial struggles learning English, something about ordering dessert in a library that made Mr. Thompson smile. After 20 minutes, Mr. Thompson closed his notebook. "Thank you, Smith. I appreciate your honesty and determination." Smith nodded, closed his own notebook, and left the room, heart racing. He wondered how he had done, doubting his performance even as excitement pulsed through his veins. Outside, the hall was nearly empty. A single string of yellow lights flickered overhead. He found Mrs. Wilson waiting by the exit, her eyes warm. "Well done, Smith. You spoke very well." His face flushed with relief. "Do you think I did okay?" she asked. "You exceeded my expectations," she replied. "Now we wait for the results." The winner would be announced the next day. Smith went home late that night to find Mira asleep on the couch, head resting on open textbooks. His mother slept soundly, her breathing steady. Smith knelt beside his sister and whispered, "I think I did well." Mira shifted awake, rubbed her eyes, and smiled briefly before drifting back to sleep. Smith tiptoed to his room, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling. Questions swirled. Could he really win? Would the letter of recommendation open the right door? Could his dreams finally become reality? The following morning, Smith arrived at the school before dawn. Students trickled in, faces etched with anticipation. Mrs. Wilson gathered everyone in the main classroom. She held an envelope in her trembling hand. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for participating in last night's interviews," she began. "Every one of you showed courage and improvement. But there can only be one winner." She paused, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope. The golden ticket goes to Smith Patel. A stunned silence enveloped the room. Then applause erupted, and classmates crowded around him, patting his back, cheering. Smith's vision blurred. He felt a surge of emotion, relief, joy, and disbelief. Tears pricked at his eyes as Mrs. Wilson handed him the certificate and the letter of recommendation. "You've earned this, my dear," she whispered. In the days that followed, the letter from Wilson Academy held unexpected power. Several Australian firms expressed interest in hiring Smith, impressed by his interview recording and glowing recommendation. He chose to accept an offer from a mid-sized insurance firm in Melbourne. The salary was modest by local standards, but enough to cover his mother's medical expenses and provide a better life for his sister. He boarded the plane with a mixture of excitement and fear of the unknown, of new challenges, of leaving his family behind. On the flight to Melbourne, Smith reflected on his journey. He remembered the mock interviews, the countless hours spent memorizing vocabulary, the mistakes that once felt insurmountable. He recalled Mira's gentle corrections, his mother's prayers, and Mrs. Wilson's unwavering belief. Learning English had been more than mastering phrases. It had been a path of transformation, teaching him resilience, humility, and the power of hope. A month later, Smith sat at his new desk in a bright, modern office. His coworkers were friendly but busy, and meetings were held entirely in English. On his first day, his manager, Ms. Harris, introduced him to the team. "This is Smith Patel. He's joining us as an assistant underwriter. He comes highly recommended from Wilson Academy. Please help him settle in." Over the next weeks, Smith attended training sessions, shadowed experienced underwriters, and practiced writing reports in English. He stumbled over idioms and acronyms, risk appetite, deductible, loss ratio, but he noted them diligently and asked questions. Slowly, he found his footing. At home, his mother's condition improved under good care, and Mira enrolled in college with the money Smith sent. They video called every evening. One night, Mira beamed when she heard Smith speak to a client on the phone. "I understand your concerns. Sir, let me see how we can help." She whispered to their mother, "He sounds like a proper Anglophone now." Their mother smiled, tears gleaming in her eyes. For Smith, that moment crystallized everything: the sacrifices, the struggles, the midnight study sessions. It had all led here. But life in Melbourne carried its own challenges. One crisp autumn afternoon, Smith received an urgent call from Mrs. Wilson back in India. Her voice trembled. "Smith, there's a problem with the school building. The roof leaked during monsoon and the foundation cracked. I fear the structure might collapse if not repaired." The language school was a lifeline for dozens of students who, like Smith, dreamed of brighter futures. Mrs. Wilson had no funds for repairs, and local authorities were slow to respond. Smith's heart sank. He felt torn. His family was safe, but the school that had given him so much was in danger. He decided to act. That evening, he gathered a group of Melbourne friends, colleagues, neighbors, and acquaintances from the Indian community and explained the situation. Many were moved by Smith's story and offered to help, donating money, contacting NGOs, and reaching out to the Indian consulate. By the end of the week, Smith and his friends had raised enough funds to commission repairs. He coordinated with local contractors in his hometown, sent money, and even booked a flight to oversee the renovations. He remembered Mrs. Wilson's gentle voice encouraging him to aim higher, and he realized that now was his chance to give back. Standing once more in the halls of Wilson Academy, now restored and repainted, Smith felt a knot in his throat. Mrs. Wilson greeted him at the entrance, her eyes shining with gratitude. She guided him through the renovated classrooms, new desks replaced the old, water-damaged ones, and fresh curtains brightened the dusty windows. On a small podium in the main classroom, she tapped a microphone. A group of students and teachers gathered, holding signs that read, "Welcome home, Smith," and "Thank you, WCAS alumni." Tears welled up as Smith took the stage. He surveyed the familiar desks, the map of the world painted on the wall, the dusty bookshelf now gleaming with new editions of English dictionaries. He cleared his throat. "When I first came here, I was lost. I couldn't even say hello in English without stuttering. But this school, these teachers, they believed in me. Mrs. Wilson, you told me once that learning a new language is like building a bridge. Today, that bridge brings me back to you." His voice trembled but grew steadier. "I came here as a student needing help. Now, I return as someone who can give back. I promise to continue supporting the school and its students so they too can cross the bridge to a better future." Applause rippled through the room. Mira, standing near the back with their mother, wiped her cheeks. Mrs. Wilson embraced Smith tightly. His heart overflowed with emotion, pride, gratitude, and a sense of purpose more profound than ever. He realized that learning English had been more than a skill. It had been a lifeline, connecting hearts across continents, bridging dreams to reality. In the months that followed, Wilson Academy flourished. New programs, funded by Smith's donations and the Melbourne Indian community, allowed students to access online resources, attend workshops, and even receive scholarships for higher education. Smith continued his career in Melbourne, advancing to a managerial position, while Mira graduated from college and found a job as a nurse. Their mother's health stabilized, her laugh returning to fill their modest home back in India. Yet Smith never forgot the suspense-filled nights he spent agonizing over verb conjugations, the fear he felt in that interview room, and the moment he held the golden ticket. He often thought of those who still sat in classroom rows, fighting doubt with every new sentence. So each year, he contacted his former teacher. "How are my old classmates doing?" Then, without hesitation, he sent more funds for new books, a bigger library, and scholarships. He visited whenever he could, sharing stories of life in Australia, teaching workshop sessions on business English, and reminding students that the bridge they built with words could carry them anywhere. One evening, years later, Smith walked past Wilson Academy at dusk. The warm glow of lamplight spilled onto the quiet street, and inside, laughter and conversation drifted through open windows. He paused, closing his eyes. He remembered the nervous young man who stood in this very spot, trembling at the thought of speaking into a foreign language. The memory surged, studying under flickering bulbs, stumbling over simple sentences, the big interview, and the first check he sent home for his mother's treatment. A gentle smile curved his lips. He stepped inside. Mrs. Wilson, older now but still radiant, greeted him with a chuckle. "You're just in time, my dear," she said. "Class is about to start." They entered a classroom where students practiced dialogues. "Excuse me, could you help me with this assignment?" "I'm sorry, I didn't understand." "Could you repeat, please?" The students listened, repeated, and laughed together, learning not just words, but confidence. Smith moved to the back of the room, watching a young student, trembling, eyes downcast, struggle to pronounce thought. He recognized the fear, the frustration, and the hope in that child's face. Stepping forward, he tapped the boy on the shoulder. "Try it this way," he whispered, demonstrating the familiar blend of letters. The boy's eyes lit up as he repeated correctly. A round of cheers erupted, and the boy beamed, pride swelling in his chest. In that moment, Smith felt tears sting his eyes. He realized the true power of language. It wasn't just about grammar, vocabulary, or even opportunity. It was about connection, linking hearts, bridging worlds, and transforming lives. And it was the threads of suspense, struggle, and emotion that wove together his journey from a timid clerk to a shining beacon of hope for countless others. As the classroom lights dimmed and students filed out, Smith lingered, savoring the warmth and promise humming in the air. He placed a hand on Mrs. Wilson's arm and whispered, "Thank you for everything." She squeezed his hand and replied softly, "Thank you for reminding me why I teach." Walking out into the cool night, Smith felt a calm certainty. The journey was never over. There would always be new challenges to face, new students to guide, and new bridges to build. But he embraced it all, grateful for the emotional and suspenseful path that had led him here. For in learning English with Smith, he had discovered more than a language. He had discovered the power of hope, the strength of perseverance, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.